Hey, what's up you guys? Today I am doing my January 2021 wrap up. I have had my best reading month ever. I have read about 6,000 pages across 15 books. Two of those books were little like short novellas that were like 50 pages each, so that's up to you if you want to count them. However, in terms of actual pages, it's the most pages I've ever read per month. Around 6,000 roughly, which I'm so impressed with myself about and very happy with. Some books I will not be talking about in this wrap up is the Renegades trilogy by Marissa Meyer. I reread these and made a non-spoiler video about why you should read them, and I will leave the link in the description. I just absolutely love that series, so I made a whole video dedicated to it. It's completely non-spoiler, so go and check that out if you're interested. And I will also not be talking about Gone Girl, which I reread and made a reading vlog for, because again, there's a whole video, so definitely go and check that out. It was so fun to reread, but I don't want to talk about it anymore in this video since I have so much to talk about anyway. And then finally, I read a little Cassandra Clare ebook that she sent out in her newsletter called The Penultimate Hours, and it was just like a short story collection. It was really cute, but I don't really have anything to say about it, so I will not be talking about that either. But without any further ado, if you enjoy this video, please leave a like and please subscribe, and definitely comment your thoughts on any of these books if you have also read them or if you want to. So my original plan for January was to spend the entire month just rereading my favourite books. However, about halfway through I decided that I was kind of over rereading. I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely going to do it like every single year, just spend like the first half of January or maybe the whole of January rereading some books, because it really just got me like right into the reading mood for the new year. But I decided halfway through that I was kind of over it and I was going to move on to some new books. But the very first book that I reread was Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte, and I read this for the first time exactly 2 years ago. It's in my very first original January 2019 wrap-up, and in this book it is about two generations of two different families that live out in the Yorkshire moors. It's very isolated, it's a very closed story, and it is all about revenge and love and despicable people destroying each other's lives out of revenge and out of love, and I just absolutely love it. I have to say, it is no longer one of my most top favourite books. I always said this was like my second favourite book. Upon rereading, it definitely isn't that far up there. I did still really love it and it was still 5 stars, but it's no longer like top 2 definitely. It's definitely probably still top 10, but I'm not completely sure. But I just still really enjoyed this. I didn't find, so obviously now I've had 2 years of reading experience under my belt. When I originally read this, I had read like no classics or anything like that before. So I found the framing device confusing the last time, and the language as well. However, this time the framing device of like there being like multiple narrators within the story didn't confuse me at all. It's very straightforward, I think, once you know what's going on. And the language is just like classics, like normal language. And I thought it was really easy to enjoy, so I would definitely like be more less hesitant, to recommend this. I used to say like, oh, I wouldn't really recommend this to people as like a first classic, which I still wouldn't recommend as like a first classic, but I think it is actually kind of easy to read, especially now with like some experience. Something I picked on up more this time as well is that Catherine, this is not going to mean anything to you if you've not read it, but the two main characters of the first half of the story is Heathcliff and Catherine, and their kind of love story. And I used to always just think that Heathcliff was like awful and Catherine was kind of just a little bit annoying. And this time round I found that Catherine actually really bugged me a lot more, and she basically, I don't want to give any spoilers, but I think she's just as awful as Heathcliff in some ways. Not as bad as him, but definitely like up there. Like she really got on my nerves this time, but in a good way. Like they're meant to be like dislikable characters. So I just really enjoyed it, and I would obviously highly recommend it to anyone, and I'm so glad I reread it and gave it a second chance. So another book that I reread this month was The Virgin Suicides by Jeffrey Eugenides. I don't know if you pronounce that. And this is a story about a family, and it has 5 daughters, and all 5 daughters commit suicide. And it's just kind of about the town coming to terms with this, and then also kind of ignoring it, and like how suicide was viewed. I think it's set around the 60s or the 70s. There's no specific time period given, but that's kind of vibe I get. And the vibes are like strong in this book. It is a very strong, like prevailing atmospheric book. I think the atmosphere is what really makes this book what it is. And I just love like the small town vibe of like everyone knowing each other's business. Talk about that quite a lot. Like Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. That's what I love, just like the small town kind of feel. And again, that is really strong in this book. I really actually felt like I was 15 again when I read this, because I read this for the first time and watched a movie around that age, like 15, 16 I think. And then I reread it in in 2019 anyway. And then this is my 3rd time reading it, and I have to say I've knocked it down from 4 stars to 3 stars at this point, because I found this time it was just very slow at points. I did enjoy it, and I did enjoy the atmosphere, and I did enjoy like it being a character study, but as an actual plot, I felt like there was a lot of time where nothing happens. There was a scene with a school dance, and from that point until the ending, I felt like nothing happened, and it was really just kind of boring actually, which I don't like to say because I actually do, well, I did think this was one of my favourite books, but now I'm not too sure. I also felt like the writing is very descriptive and I like it for the atmosphere part, but I felt like at times it was kind of self-indulgent and you could just tell that the author was like impressed with himself as he was writing it. Another book I read was Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and then also Through the Looking Glass, which my copy comes with the two of them together, as most of them do. And this is one of my like all-time favourite books. It is like my favourite children's book, favourite children's classic. Like I have read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, the first book, so many times, like so many times. It is like my comfort book. I didn't even have to fully read it. I could like just look at the page and I know exactly what it said. And again, I still really enjoyed it. As always, it is like my go-to comfort book. However, Through the Looking Glass just does not do the same thing for me. I don't know if it's just because when I was a child, I didn't really continue on and read Through the Looking Glass as often as I did Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. But I just think the characters aren't as interesting. The plot, there isn't much of a plot, but like the adventureness of it just isn't as interesting. And what I like about Adventures in Wonderland is that it actually does feel like it could actually be happening to Alice. And then at the end of the story, when it is revealed that it was actually a dream, it's kind of a surprise. However, Through the Looking Glass is so like clearly a dream just because of the way that the settings change like so abruptly and there's just like no pattern or through line. Things just kind of happen. And I feel like Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, yes, lots of random things are happening, but she is like wandering around herself and exploring, whereas Through the Looking Glass is definitely more just like things happening to her. So I do like love Alice's Adventure in Wonderland. It's like 5 stars, but Through the Looking Glass to me is like maybe a 3-star. Something that I read for the first time this month was Letter from Birmingham Jail by Martin Luther King Jr. and my edition, which is the Penguin Mini Moderns, has a second speech by him as well, which was also really good, but I'm just going to mostly focus on Letter from Birmingham Jail. And this was a letter that he wrote while in jail discussing the need for direct action and for people to break unjust laws in order to progress and achieve equality. And I thought this was just like such a powerful short story, not short story, you know what I mean. Both speeches, the letter and then the speech, were 25 pages each, but they just like hit home the message like so hard. He is just so intelligent in the way that he weaves together philosophy and religion and history and current day events for him, which is history for us now, all together to create this narrative that just gets his point across like so clearly, and just like his words are so powerful. Like you could feel the power of his voice through the page and like through the words that he wrote. And there's just so many amazing quotes in it as well, just in this short little 25 page letter that he wrote. And I don't know, I just think it is like so powerful and I think everyone should read it. It's like just like so historically important and really just like makes you think. So my Cassandra Clare books for the month were the Dark Artifices series, and this is like books 10, 11 and 12 in the Shadowhunter Chronicles. I'm not really going to talk about plot or anything that much, so feel free to skip this section if you don't really care that much. But I absolutely love this trilogy. I think it's her best written. I think that you could really see her skills improve as a writer through every single mini-series within the Shadowhunter Chronicles that she writes, and I was just so impressed with this book. However, I do think that the chapters are still too long. Like, they're 30 pages minimum per chapter. It just is too much. And then the books themselves, although I did really enjoy them, there's no need for them to be like 800, 900 pages. Like, the stories are not that complex to require that big a page length. However, I did also still read all of them in like 2 days each, so make of that what you will. The first book, Lady Midnight, took me a minute to get into, but I quickly came to love all the characters. I love the family dynamic that is present throughout the entire series. That is like the most important relationship, is just the Blackthorn family. And I also really enjoyed the forbidden romance between Julian and Emma. I just loved like how dangerous it was, and like just the forbidden aspect of it just made it more exciting to me. I have to say that I didn't really care who killed Emma's parents, which is like presented at the start of the first book as like the big mystery of the series, and I was worried that we were going to have to care about that for the entire series. I was like, this isn't even like interesting to me. However, her parents like murder is kind of wrapped up at the end of book 1, which I was very happy about, and then the plot really progresses on to like more interesting stuff. Lord of Shadows broke my heart in so many ways. Obviously, no spoilers. If you know, you know. If you don't know, then I would say you have to read this book if you want to have your heart broken. I nearly cried. I never cry at books. There's very few books I've almost cried at, but this is one of them. It was like just so amazing, like the ending. It was so heartbreaking. And again, I also just loved in this book, like the forbidden romance was like really heating up, and I just was like completely in love with the series at that point. Like book one I did really enjoy, but book two I was like, okay, this is like a standout series. Something else that I really also enjoyed in book two was Kit and Ty's friendship. I just think that strong friendships, especially like just strong male friendships, are so important in literature because you don't see it as much, I don't think. And it was just like so sweet and pure and innocent, and I just absolutely loved it. I also really thought that Ty's autism, obviously I'm like not own voices, so I can't really say for sure, but I thought that the way that she wrote about his autism was very beautifully done, very, you know, sensitive, and just all round like handled really well, and I really liked that. Queen of Air and Darkness was like the perfect finale. I have nothing to say that isn't like completely spoilers, so I'll just say that it was a perfect finale. There was so much romance and action, and it was just all round a fantastic book. And I think that maybe The Dark Artifices is my favourite mini-series within the Shadowhunter Chronicles at this point. Another book that I read this month was Pages from the Pizza Crows by Evan Whitmer, and this was a self-published book that I was sent by the author in exchange for a free review, and I really enjoyed this. It is a short story collection that is weaved together through a really interesting little narrative, and all the stories are kind of like weird, odd fiction, so like a lot of horror, but mostly fantasy, and I really enjoyed almost every story. There was only one that didn't really hit the mark for me, but that's like to be expected with short story collections. You're never going to enjoy every single one. My favourite one was called 9/10 an Ape, and it took the concept of the monkey paw, which is a old story about a monkey paw that gives you wishes, but like things always go wrong. And in Evan's story, the monkey is like, it's stuffed, but the paw is missing, so it's everything apart from the paw. And every time you wish for something, it actually gives you the exact opposite of what you are wishing for. And I just thought it was a really cool concept. The one I didn't enjoy was called like Young Adult Series Simulator. It just didn't really hit the mark for me. But overall, I really enjoyed the collection. I thought Evan's writing as well was like really superb, like really polished for self-published books. I feel like sometimes they don't really hit the mark there, but I thought his writing was great, and I definitely will read more from him in the future. So also there is one like little trigger warning. There was one story that the main premise is kind of about rape. It doesn't actually happen in the story, but it is talked about a lot, and it is like in the background of the story throughout. So obviously be wary of that, or maybe like skip that story if you decide to read the book and you don't want to read about that. But overall, I just thought this was like a really good, solid short story collection. So that was a summary of most of the books that I read in January. Just a reminder, if you want to hear about the Renegades trilogy by Marissa Meyer, there will be the link in the description. And if you are interested in my reading vlog for Gone Girl, there will be a link in the description as well. So if you've read any of these books, let me know your thoughts. Let me know. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and please subscribe. And let me know your thoughts, obviously, like I've already said. And I will see you in my next video.